Director and CEO of the Surrey Research Park, a large research park in Guildford, UK, populated mainly with ECT and space-centered commercial enterprises. Works as an expert with UNICE and UNESCO, advising on the role of science parks. In 2006, Dr. Barry received an OBE from Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth.
Justement. Et aujourd'hui, il va nous parler de pôle d'innovation et rôle du Technopark dans les économies en développement. Welcome, Mr. Malcolm Perry.
Thank you very much for the introduction and the opportunity to come here to talk to you all about the issue of innovation clusters and the role of tech parks in developing countries. And ministers, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. And it's clear from what has been said over the last 2 days that there's real intent on reaching deep into the opportunity-led entrepreneur community across the wider Caribbean by focusing on the young talent that permeates the region of which many of you are sitting in this room. Although the history of building modern economies started about 250 years ago, the story about tech parks and incubation only really began around the mid-1970s, following the launch of the personal computer, which in my view has proved to be a critical innovation. Because it made knowledge more accessible to people of all ages. In essence, it democratized knowledge. These devices and successors have also increased the opportunity and reduced the cost for entrepreneurs to take a role in the business community to exploit their ideas, which in effect has enabled young people to become a significant force that has helped to drive innovation at a number of levels, which itself is creating a whole new era of opportunity. But I also recognize that taking up these opportunities is not easy for individuals without help. Which requires a concerted effort by business and policymakers to create faster moving models of innovation, which are reflected back into the ever-changing relationships between talent, raw materials, and technology. And in a business environment that's becoming increasingly reliant on technology and talent to maintain a competitive advantage, particularly where the talent can deliver the kind of entrepreneurial flair that drives innovation, of which there are examples, such as new products, of which no doubt we can think of many, or picking a few examples from my own experience that are relevant in a developing economy, perhaps a startup like one on our park that is a partner of Amazon Web Services. It has developed a remotely accessible rain sensor, and it's being used extensively in rural Africa. And a development project for switching on solar generator power and its use in households in rural areas in Kenya using M-Pesa and M-Kosa, 2 systems. And on a recent visit to Indonesia, they're planning 10 technology parks there, I saw the impact of a new business model branded GoCheck, which is an online platform to order services such as taxi motorcycles. I think these are being copied universally, but it's been developed by a local entrepreneur using Singaporean and Japanese venture capital, and is now a hugely successful company, staggeringly so. Or you could just simply look and simply write and launch a game application and hope that it catches on. And this is not the least of it, because this powerful relationship between technology and talent is forcing change in universities. Many governments are pushing universities to shift their role from just teaching and research for general advancement of a population to one with a strong mission orientation. And to encourage this, there is now an insistence that all public funded research in the UK is required to demonstrate impact on business and the community, so goes beyond, in fact, well beyond impact on just other academics. There's also an increasing pressure on universities to engage with regional smart specialization and cluster formation, which is making them look at how they can link to prevailing business activities to try to strengthen their position in this role. Also, the rising cost of university education is driving changes in university courses to make graduates more useful to employers. And this includes offering courses on student on enterprise as part of a degree course. And I quote a statement here: although complementary, scientific work and entrepreneurship are entirely different. It's entrepreneurship which gives science its modern economic significance, not the other way around. And at one time, this would have been put in the context of scientific research for defense, or for general cultural development, or for universities to raise their international status through scientific publication. But today, there is a new challenge that includes looking for commercially founded solutions to global challenges and using government spend on research to deliver economic growth and employment. And these will require collaboration across all of the disciplines of engineering and technology that make up what we call science. And I've added this rider to ensure that there is recognition that science is seen in its widest sense, which underpin solutions such as creating innovation platforms that will help to improve resource efficiency, creating more with less, developing a stronger bioeconomy, drive digitization and dematerialization, and to improve health services. And at a social level, these businesses are likely to respond to international opportunities to resolve complex problems that are becoming apparent with increasing urbanization, as well as looking at markets that are emerging from the continued impact of the web on society, such as I've mentioned, the Indonesian model of Gojek, and in the Kenya examples, using the M-Pesa and M-Kosa system. And there are opportunities associated with maturing environmental concerns and the increasing impact on geographic dispersion. And the markets that are emerging through mega trends related to demographics, such as aging populations or a very young population like in Haiti, and resolving where the balance of power of regulation lies between democratic process and business in terms of handling personal data. The business opportunities that are being presented by all these challenges make projects like Alpha Haiti so important for the era from 2020 to 2050 by giving entrepreneurs the opportunity to capture value in new businesses in order to compete. But you will recognize that the complexity of these challenges cannot be met by one group in society. So to enable this shift, there's a process of change that's taking place. And that change requires engagement between many stakeholder agencies that I believe are represented in this room. The need for collaboration is a familiar story, and one that is equally relevant and required of all economies, regardless of income level. But of course, the level of commitment by each of the stakeholders will vary depending on the prevailing economic circumstances. But it's a mistake to think that it is only developing countries that business incubation needs government support, because I know of few, if any, anywhere in the world that are completely self-funding. So there's a charge on government to support them. So how do tech parks and incubations resolve to justify their existence? To illustrate this, I'm going to talk about my own park briefly for a moment, which I started in 1981. The first point is that government gave permission to build this site, so they helped create value in the land through the form of a subsidy by giving permission. And in turn, we used that to fund the development by selling a plot of land. But as an observation, this is not the only route of developing these sites, because science and technology parks have many origins while sharing common objectives. And in our case, the objectives were to provide a full business incubation service for very early stage startups, as well as provide startups with access to smaller starter rooms when they didn't want the full incubation service, but wanted short-term occupation, a fully serviced space in a business startup-orientated community, as well as the potential of gaining access to the talent and technology in our university in order to hopefully gain a competitive advantage while they were preparing themselves to be investment ready. And our park, like all others, offers a business the image and reputation of being involved in a science and technology environment with incubation. It was also intended to help the university create some independent income, to raise our profile as a business-focused institution, and to help graduates find internships and eventually full-time employment. There's also the role of these parks in population retention to prevent a diaspora by keeping the talented people in the country. To do this, to the extent this picture shows, has taken nearly 40 years. So those involved in this game need to be patient. Today, more than 40% of the tenants in the more independent grow-on space started life in our Surrey Technology Incubator, which was the first building. This offers a range of business support services: broadband, telephony, reception, meeting rooms, and inside there's one area that offers very early stage pre-revenue startups, a desk in a co-working space where they have, in addition to these services, access to business advisors. We call them entrepreneurs in residence, a team of volunteer mentors, access to coaching and education programs, and this is subsidized by the university and some government funding. The rest of this building offers a service of private rooms to sustainable revenue generating companies, either funded by equity investment or market funded by selling something, while they continue to grow in their business. And these companies pay a commercial rate for the space, they pay rent, so they become real businesses. But it's important to understand the incubator service for pre-revenue companies is paid for collaborative way by the government and the university. And by that I mean the cost of the facilities, not the day-to-day running cost of the companies. They have to pay for that themselves. Although in some developing economies, these running costs can be paid for by grant funding. And some have used our park to scale, which is very important, and moved into larger facilities, which include purpose-built manufacturing facilities for high-value, low-volume products, such as mini satellites. And also what I saw in Indonesia was the development of medical products for import substitution to reduce costs to the health system. So over the years, our incubator has made an important contribution to the cluster of businesses by developing entrepreneurial skills and companies. And this model can be replicated in city environments, as well as by repurposing existing buildings, such as creating this facility here out of a cinema. And in China, this is commonly done by producing space for many companies at different levels of a development, where the companies are at different levels of development in the same high-rise block. But the important element of what is on offer is the support services. So returning to the theme of incubators in developing countries and comparing them with those in higher income countries, I've come to the conclusion that the principles behind their role in business development is comparable, which makes what they do transferable between economies. And to develop the business we take in, it follows a pattern, which they are when they're allocated to what we call the entrepreneur in residence, with someone with business skills and is well connected into the local and regional economy. The businesses are offered a list of mentors that they can choose one from. We rent them a desk in a co-working space, subsidized desk. We use our business model to review and assess the projects at 3-monthly intervals. But these entrepreneurs learn from their peers sitting in the same room, and we allow a term of 3 years in the incubator, after which the companies have to leave, although those that raise funding more quickly than 3 years generally move into the larger space in our buildings, but they still retain links with the incubator team through the alumnus program. It's a common model, and I understand it is to be a similar model in the Alpha Haiti program. When helping companies plan, typically the kind of questions we ask, that we ask them to cover when we're interviewing them include the problems their technology product solves, the compelling need for a solution, cost to the customer to implement the solution, the addressable market and how this can be reached, how much, if anything, the customers are already spending to address that need today, and what they will save by using the company's offer, from which the value proposition to the customer can be worked out, and answer the questions such as, does my product meet the need in a way that either saves or makes them substantial amounts of money? Are there deal killers in the project? And will it stand the test of time and other changes in the market? And is the market deliverable by my company? In fact, some of these questions were posed very clearly also by Olivier, who gave an excellent presentation on the DNA product that he has. Based around these questions and using the typical business modeling tools available today, such as Business Model Canvas, Value Proposition Canvas, and Lean Canvas, for example, it's possible to put metrics to the strengths and weaknesses in the plans that are recorded in this balanced startup tool. So you can put a metric against each of those dimensions. And if this is repeated every 3 months, it's hoped that a point is reached when there is a consensus between the incubator team and the incubatee company that the story they tell will convince investors to get involved. And to help make this a success, we coach incubatees to do a 10-minute pitch using the balanced startup system in this framework on which to describe where their business is investable, and they are investable. And our Angel Club, which we run on the park, also accepts pitches from outside of our community to widen the influence of our park into the business community. But to maintain the standards of pitches, we put them through the same program of assessing their potential. And the message that underpins what I have just described is that the actual process of starting an opportunity-led company is the same in most parts of the world. The amount of risk taken in an incubator in a less developed economy is certainly going to be higher than in a developed economy. But it's also clear to me that the pool of technology from which to draw ideas is much smaller in developing countries. Excuse me. Thirsty work. And that makes working along the journeys from putting money into technology to taking money out of technology is so much harder, which makes the value of places like Alpha Haiti so much greater. And over the next few slides, I'm going to comment on the journeys that most companies take, and we'll give some reference points to this slide. The first journey relates to the technology being commercialized. This is a stylized representation. Quality of a product or technology. It means looking at this in the context of the market and against competition, and developing what is known as the minimal viable product, which can be promoted. And of course, the starting point doesn't have to be at the beginning in basic research. I've met hundreds of companies using existing technologies to solve customer problems, which is likely to be the case here. But whatever the starting point, the ambition for the end point is to always create a warrantable product or service. The market journey, in simple terms, is about finding customers. This can be hardest, but most critical journey. And where this is most difficult is where there is no market, which means overcoming complete market indifference, then proving the product in field trials, finding early adopters, and eventually finding regular sales. And one of the values of the management in places like Alpha Haiti, and in our case, our entrepreneurs in residence, is that they are commonly connected people that can help with building the networks that can deliver customers. Other market developments strategies use the huge potential of the internet. There's blogging using beta version releases, offering free trials, advertising, and working on online forums and communities. But probably nothing beats networks that come out of prior contact to a market experience. And of course, building a company requires people with the right skill set. My experience is that most companies start with 1 or 2 founder members. And as part of this growth, investors are brought in and their connections are highly valuable. And if the business is product-based, there's a need for operational staff and, of course, those that have the skill set to sell. But the timing and quality of recruitment is particularly important because if you're going to scale, you've got to have the right team. And as an observation, it's not uncommon to hear entrepreneurs pitching for funds because they need to recruit sales staff and build a marketing interest because to build on existing sales. But to make the company journey smoother, the process is always advisable to be supported by a shareholder agreement between those in the company that can be put to work when recruitment starts or resolving disputes between directors, which are not uncommon. And the final journey relates to navigating the regulation of the business environment. The optimum is neutral or positive. Clearly, this helps to attract entrepreneurs and investors, particularly where the tax environment gives favorable terms to investors. However, where these environments are more challenging or difficult to change, some countries have looked to the definition of science and technology parks or incubators as environments where regulations can be relaxed. This focus on business incubation by tech parks and their equivalent in some city districts has proved that where technology and talent coincides, if the price and conditions are right, a modern cluster may form. The influence of these clusters is their capacity to increase productivity through sharing risk, part of which comes from pooling labor, that when combined helps companies to compete nationally and globally. And where these have self-generated in places like Tech City in London or Silicon Alley in New York, they've taken more than 20 years to form. But with on-site management that science and technology parks and incubators offer, there's the promise of this clustering effect occurring more rapidly. But these clusters do not need a lot of capital. And I'm going to give you an example. In 1991, 2 young men turned up in my science park, in my incubator. They took advantage of the increasing capacity of CDs over floppy disks to make their games, which they were writing, more interesting. They published these games, but supported the business of publishing the games by doing contract work for Sega and Nintendo, because they were offering these opportunities. And eventually they sold their company Bullfrog, which was responsible for Hospital and Theme Park and other God Sim games. They sold it to Electronic Arts. One of the founders left and came back to my park. He formed a company called Lionhead Studios. Lionhead Studios was bought by Microsoft when they wanted the Xbox, content for the Xbox. Lionhead Studios was closed by Microsoft after a while, but this guy went on to form another company, 22 Cans, which is focusing on the mobile phone platform, because that's where the real market lies, particularly in China. And so we've got 3,000 people working in the game sector in our town. We've got companies that test games. We now have lawyers that are focusing on media in the region. And this has caught the eye of the government, who gives tax credits to game development, which is now in place as part of the media industry. And as a continuing contribution to this sector, my park has sponsored a games development co-working space, offers 46 desks that are being used by local independent talented games developers. It's full every day. We keep the tacit knowledge in the town. It's managed for me by 2 entrepreneurs that are gamers themselves, and they take 40% of the money from the desks, and we take 60%. So it's a real partnership between us, and it's proved to be very, very successful. Another important feature of any cluster is that they attract private investors that can follow on from funding research and innovation programs. Across this slide, the performers are noted in the middle, the funders are across the top, and across the bottom, there's technology readiness levels, which are covered by the performers. And what is now happening, because of the change in attitude by many governments towards funding their national research, they're attempting to achieve higher levels of technology readiness level from the research they fund by demanding that research funding is used to push and pull the outputs of research up the technology readiness scale, which increases the interest of investors, including those companies that operate open innovation strategies. To amplify the open innovation strategy, it's useful to understand where entrepreneur-led companies sit in terms of low to high risk they take in the context of the market for which they're developing a product and the execution of developing their company. And why that's of interest to the way parks operate and the role they play is, if they're successful in building clusters, they can bring in outside investors that buy the companies. This relationship becomes increasingly important because of the growth of interest in open innovation by large corporations. The driver is that the larger companies are commonly risk averse, in contrast to the majority of startups. We are operating in the high risk market and high risk delivery quadrant in this image. But I should also emphasize that we accept both those companies involved in incremental and potentially disruptive innovations. So it doesn't have to be a disruptive innovation to be in that quadrant, although there are far fewer disruptive innovation companies than the ones that are involved in incremental innovation. But what are we doing to encourage investment into the entrepreneurial companies that add economic value to science and technology parks? And the context of this is creating clusters where external investors acquire some of our young companies, and they help us build image and reputation for our site. So in meeting the brief of talking about incubation in the context of developing economies. I've covered the question of who pays for incubation. General rule is the government, although there are some services that are offered that offer space and service for equity. They're called accelerators. And these tend to be a bit more prescriptive than incubators, so they demand much narrower focus of the entrepreneurs. And on the question of whether building a business is the same in all economies, my answer is yes. We all have to do the same. But where things start to diverge is the origin of the companies. In many high-income economies, the majority of companies emerge from an existing business community, with most startups coming from within an easy commute of a center. So most of the companies that we see are close when they start up, and often they spin out of larger, mature companies where young graduates learn a business, work with customers, and then ask themselves the question about the potential for innovation. So they believe they can deliver through their own business something that is more effective. Some come from companies that are falling apart, and there are some, although few, that are academic spin-outs. And some just simply are led by serial entrepreneurs. And we see a few of those, but not many. But we have some at the moment working on our park that are working to see the opportunity presented by blockchain technology. However, my experience of startup programs in developing countries is that they are more reliant on student enterprise programs run by universities and business schools, and with diminishing number being influenced by high-profile entrepreneurs. And there are some university spin-outs by academics, but the regulations in universities and government need to be favorable to enable this to happen. And of course, there are opportunities for government or existing companies to offer challenge funds or challenge programs where they articulate a problem to which they seek a commercial solution, which can stimulate the start of a new business. And some incubators are now running hackathons to try and create teams of entrepreneurs to address commercial opportunities. These need to be managed and are more appropriate for some technologies than others, but they can work. And some countries offer advantageous tax breaks for startups. And finally, there's the opportunity of working with the diaspora, well-educated, internationalized young professionals that you can try and attract back into the economy. Other ideas that are being developed in response to increasing urbanization are innovation districts. These locations, and I quote, are where innovative firms co-locate in compact, amenity-rich hotspots, which have at their core firms, research labs, and universities that share ideas and practice open innovation. They're based on the integration of physical, economic, and network assets that are managed in an attempt to coordinate economic development and sustainable high-quality employment. But there needs to be a managing entity involved to try and coordinate this. The physical assets comprise the public and private realms, which need to be wired, have good links between buildings, and are accessible across city zones through good transport. They need to offer the right kind of business accommodation, which is usually a mix of subsidized space for incubation and acceleration, grow-on space, and this very often needs collaboration between the planning authority and the property industry. So you've got a partnership. And the provision of housing and transport through this private sector. In ideal circumstances, it must be recognized that it may not be possible to meet all of these requirements in one location, but you can improve a region or a zone in a city to try and provide that. To create innovation drivers, which is R&D activity, the presence of corporates, local companies, and most importantly, innovation cultivators such as Alpha Haiti, with skilled management, accelerators, and co-working spaces, with access to tech transfer offices and entrepreneur education. And if possible, encourage links with experienced managers and investors that can help companies to scale. The third element of this is that you need to develop network assets. These can be weak and cross boundaries of technologies and assets, or strong where they're deep in understanding of a particular technology through formal and informal contacts. So in summary, incubators and science and technology parks future by helping opportunity-led entrepreneurs capture this value, scale, but this needs partnership. And I'd like to say congratulations to all of those who have been working on the Alpha Haiti to bring it to fruition, and I wish the project very well. Thank you.
Je vous demande encore une fois d'applaudir notre keynote speaker du jour. Eh bien.
Voilà, donc c'est dit. Hier, on a eu Tony et le Mélu. Aujourd'hui, on a eu Malcolm Perry, donc nos deux keynote speakers qui étaient là pour vous motiver, partager avec vous leur passion, leurs expériences. Et c'est donc fait. Vous avez appris. Là, comme l'avait dit Martine il y a un instant, on est là pour vous motiver, pour vous inspirer. Donc, j'espère que après ces 2 journées, on va vraiment avoir des idées et l'incubateur est là pour accompagner ces jeunes qui ont les idées, vous soutenir, vous encadrer. Donc, l'espace est à vous et j'espère que vous allez suivre le déroulement du processus, que ce soit en installant l'application Alpha Haiti, en likant Alpha Haiti sur Facebook et sur les réseaux sociaux. Vous allez savoir exactement où et quand vous pouvez intervenir, interagir avec Alpha Haiti.
Eh bien oui, ce n'est que le début. Nous avons eu vraiment 2 jours nés, 2 jours formidables où nous avons beaucoup appris, nous avons beaucoup attendu. Et comme je l'ai dit dans la salle où je me trouvais, eh bien, ce n'est que le début, mais c'est à nous autres aussi de faire le reste. C'est à nous autres de participer en tant que jeunes entrepreneurs, eh bien, au centre incubateur. C'est à nous autres de venir avec les idées, c'est à nous autres de les partager et c'est à nous autres aussi de croire en notre capacité, eh bien, de réaliser ces idées-là. Je pense que la plupart des entrepreneurs, des motivational speakers ont vraiment insisté sur certains aspects. Eh bien, c'est justement la foi, la croyance. Il faut croire à son idée, il faut y aller jusqu'au bout. Les valeurs, respecter certaines valeurs, dont la discipline, qui nous permettra justement de franchir tous les obstacles, mais aussi il y a une autre, on va dire, un autre principe sur lequel ils ont tous insisté, c'est la collaboration. Et je pense que si quelque part on n'utilise pas, on ne met pas en avant ce principe de collaboration, de tête ensemble, de partnership, comme ils l'ont si bien dit en anglais, eh bien, on arrivera peut-être vite tout seul, mais on n'arrivera pas loin si on ne se met pas ensemble.
Tout à fait. Il faut aussi se préparer, Martine. Et, on l'avait dit, les opportunités sont là, il faut pouvoir les saisir. Ça me rappelle un exemple que prend toujours un ancien président haïtien. Ou quoi avec un jeune, il dit le travail, on met ça qu'on fait, il dit n'importe qui bagaille. N'importe qui bagaille pas un métier. Donc, il a besoin de travail, mais qui ça qu'on fait, n'importe quoi la gueule. Donc, là, il n'est pas prêt pour saisir les opportunités. Il y a peut-être 3 semaines de cela, j'étais sur une table avec Marc-Alain Boussico. On était en train de s'adresser à des jeunes sur oui ou non, doit-on quitter Haïti? Et question est tournée autour de Haïti pas offrir rien, Haïti pas offrir opportunité, Haïti pas encourager jeunes, Haïti pas offrir possibilité. Donc là, je dis avec Incubateur, ça, c'est un début. L'innovation, c'est ou même qu'on y a qui idéa, ou dit pas encadrer ou qu'on y a un espace pour ça. Ou dit pas accompagner ou qu'on y a des réflexions sur ça. Donc maintenant, c'est à vous de venir avec des idées potables, des idées qui ont de l'avenir, afin que nous soyons capables d'avancer ensemble. Donc, il y a déjà un pas qui est fait en ce sens. Il faut l'encourager et avancer dans cette direction.
Et la particularité de cet incubateur, comme l'a si bien dit le docteur Jean-Jacques Rousseau, c'est que nous ne pas encadrer seulement, nous ne pas conseiller seulement, mais quelque part, nous aller des jeunes, et bien, joindre financement ça, qui n'est pas facile à trouver, qui n'est pas évident à trouver dans notre pays, mais c'est aussi, nous doit dire, particularité incubateur Alpha Haïti.
Il y a l'aspect accélérateur aussi. Donc, après, au fin, il y a une idée à transformer, il y a peut-être pousser le pied devant pour qu'il vienne plus performant en tant qu'entrepreneur. Donc, moi, c'est là, gagner un bon début. Et c'est jeunes qui pour faire part, qui pour venir avec des idées pour nous capables d'avancer ensemble, puisque ce n'est pas pour rien que nous disons chaque jour, la jeunesse, c'est espoir pays, on dit tout le temps, mais en pile fois, nous envie de quitter le slogan, nous ne pas prendre rien pour ça. Mais là, je pense que c'est un bon pas qui fait dans la bonne direction pour que vraiment jeune ça, que nous avons regardé jeunes aujourd'hui, quand pile fois nous envie de dire, qui perd du destination, qui perd du sens de responsabilité, pour nous faire un retour à nos valeurs et nos principes, pour nous croire dans notre travail, croire dans l'effort, plutôt que dans la facilité.
Incubateur, donc, pour les entrepreneurs en devenir, c'est-à-dire pour jeunes qui ont une nouvelle idée, qui peuvent commencer entreprise, et accélérateur pour les gens qui ont une entreprise, pour aider justement à aller plus loin avec entreprise. Et au niveau de l'accélérateur, si je comprends bien, participation Dr. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, là, un panel qui t'a fait, qui t'a relé accélérateur des industries créatives au niveau de ce centre incubateur. Eh bien, l'accélérateur va justement commencer avec les entreprises créatives de notre pays. Ça veut dire que ça veut dire que monde qui déjà entreprise dans le domaine culturel, dans le domaine créatif là, eh bien, au niveau de Alpha Haïti, il va aider à aller plus loin. Et justement, on a beaucoup mis l'accent sur l'aspect technologique, mais il y a aussi cet espace donné à la culture haïtienne, aux entreprises créatives, parce que comme vous le savez, la culture de chez nous, eh bien, c'est quelque chose d'extraordinaire qui mérite d'être mieux connu, qui mérite aussi d'être apporté au monde. Et c'est à diversité de la culture haïtienne au monde entier.
Quoi dans tête ou pas quitter personne définir avenir ou parole ça dans tête moins avec René Godefroy ou ses propres limites tête ou donc pas quitter personne ou pas qu'à faire ça foncer et c'est ou même seulement qui a campé ou sur route jusqu'à ce que ou atteindre l'objectif ou continuer à foncer. On avance vers la fin de la journée, certainement, comme on l'avait dit après l'intervention de Malcolm Perry, il y avait ce que Martinet m'a appelé